How are you feeling today? There is a word in Latin, Puer Aeternus. It means the eternal child, the one who never grows old, who never stops dreaming. The name first appeared in Metamorphoses by the Roman poet Ovid, where the gods were not merely divine figures, but mirrors, poetic symbols of the human soul itself. Among those pages, the child god Iacchus is mentioned the god of light, of the mysterious Eleusinian rites that only the awakened were allowed to witness. An ancient ceremony where humanity learned the sacred rhythm of the soul to live, to die, and to be reborn. Later, that divine child was merged with Dionysus, the god of wine, of wildness, of destruction, and of creation. He was also Eros, god of love, the raw life force that drives all things to bloom and to dissolve. From within these myths, the image of the eternal child began to take shape. Both holy and perilous, a being who carries within them the innocence of heaven. They carry within them the innocence of heaven and the storm of desire. Well over 2,000 years later, Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, saw in this symbol a mirror of the modern soul. He called it an archetype, an ancient structure that lives deep in the collective unconscious. And like all archetypes, it has two faces. One illuminates life with creativity, freedom, wonder, and joy. The other drags us into illusion, avoidance, and fear of growing up. Within each of us, the Puer Aeternus still lives. It is the part that longs to fly, to dream, to be loved without consequence. But it is also the part that refuses to grow, that fears responsibility, that cannot bear to face real pain. Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that is the essence of Puer Aeternus. When we are unaware of it, it quietly guides our choices, our emotions, and our escapes. We think we are living freely, but in truth, we are only replaying an old dream that we're too afraid to wake from. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you hesitated to step out of a comfortable illusion? How many times have you said, "I'm not ready," when what you really meant was, "I'm afraid there will be no one waiting for me outside the dream"? The eternal child is not just a mythic concept. It is a fragment of our nature, a reminder that within us still glows the first light of existence, the part that once knew how to love, dream, and believe. But that light, if left unexamined, can turn into the very fire that consumes us. Inside every adult lives a child, one who still longs to hear someone say, "You can grow up and you will still be loved." Perhaps nothing in this world is as beautiful as the light of youth. It is a blazing fire of dreams, faith, and innocence. And yet, that very fire, if left unguided, can burn the soul of the one who carries it. Puer Aeternus, the eternal child, holds within it the radiance of beginnings, but also the shadow of avoidance. For deep within that child lies a quiet fear, a fear of growing up, a fear of attachment. This fear stems from a sense of responsibility for one's own life. It longs to live in the eternity of potential, not in the reality of limitation. It wants to fly, but not to land, to love, but not to lose, to begin, but never to finish. Carl Jung once said, "All light is born from darkness, and where there is too much light, the darkness grows deeper still." The child within us is the same. It resists growing up not out of ignorance, but out of the fear that growing up will kill the magic. It looks at adulthood and sees only exhaustion, duty, and loneliness. So it hides, retreating into the safety of dreams, imagination, and a freedom that exists only in fantasy. In the Matrix, Neo stands before two pills. The blue one to forget, to stay in the comforting illusion where nothing hurts, The red one to see the truth, to awaken in the real world, raw and irreversible. The eternal child in us always wants to take the blue pill. It wants joy without pain, life without growth. It yearns for joy without pain, life without growth, and love without loss. But the blue pill keeps us asleep, living in a dream that never truly begins. Puer carries a sacred gift, creativity, imagination, and the rare ability to see beauty in the smallest things. Nevertheless, without consciousness, that gift turns into a curse. It keeps us living in tomorrow, where everything will be different, better, and ready, but never today. And today, this ordinary, imperfect, fearful now is precisely what the Puer refuses to face. When it runs too long from reality, its light begins to warp. Freedom becomes avoidance. Creativity turns to illusion. Innocence transforms into irresponsibility. Listen closely. Have you ever felt that way too? When you dream so much yet fear to begin? When you worried that taking action might lead to losing your magic? You might lose your magic? We like to think we're living, but sometimes we're only lodging in the dream of youth. The child within us doesn't want to die, but sometimes, to truly live, we must let it grow up. Perhaps there is no place in the world as safe as a mother's arms. From the moment we were nothing more than a small pulse of life, we learned to listen to her heartbeat as if it were our own. That sound, steady, tender, was the first music of existence. And because of that, even as we grow, the deepest part of the soul still longs to return to that place where we don't have to try, don't have to prove, don't have to fear being hurt, a place where just being is enough to be loved. Carl Jung called this bond the mother complex, and within the psychology of the Puer Aeternus, the eternal child, it is the most invisible yet powerful tether of all. The mother, Jung wrote, is the refuge of the soul, but she can also be the womb that imprisons it forever. Marie-Louise von Franz, Jung's closest collaborator, once observed, "The eternal boy is the man trapped in adolescence, dependent upon his mother's love and unable to grow up. When a child is sheltered too long, he learns not courage but avoidance. Instead of facing fear, he retreats. Instead of learning from failure, he hides in the comfort of safety. At first, it seems harmless, just a brief rest, but slowly it becomes a sweet addiction, like a narcotic of warmth and protection. He begins to need that softness to exist, and in doing so, loses the strength to stand alone. We call it love, but sometimes love taken too far becomes a golden cage. The mother holds on, afraid her child will be hurt. The child stays afraid the world is too cruel, and in that embrace, both forget love was never meant to keep. It was meant to be released." Von Franz wrote of a haunting image. The boy grows into a man, yet still carries within him the call to return to the womb, an unconscious longing for perfect safety where there are no choices, no responsibilities, and no freedom. Perfect safety sounds sweet, but it's the death of life itself, because only by leaving the mother's arms can we be born again, not into flesh, but into consciousness. If you've ever found yourself unable to decide, afraid to fail, afraid to lose, afraid to walk into the unknown, look deeper. Perhaps somewhere inside, there's still a home calling you back, a home that is warm but no longer wide enough for the soul you're becoming. A mother's love is where we begin, but it is never where we are meant to stay. One of the clearest manifestations of the Puer Aeternus archetype is what Carl Jung called a provisional life, a way of living in which a person constantly postpones entering real life, always waiting for something, for the right time, for one day when Outwardly, they move, speak, and dream, but inwardly, they never truly begin. Marie-Louise von France, Jung's student and closest interpreter, described the pure as someone imaginative, gifted, and emotionally sensitive, yet deeply ungrounded. They are intelligent and perceptive, but unable to translate awareness into action, because every action demands commitment. Commitment entails defining a boundary, closing off countless other possibilities. For the Puer, choosing one path feels like losing all the others. This is the central paradox of the archetype. The Puer longs to live in the realm of infinite potential, where everything is still possible, but by never choosing, never engaging, they lose touch with the living energy that only arises through concrete action, through committing to the present moment. Jung wrote, "The man possessed by the Puer archetype lives as though his life has not yet begun. Everything remains temporary, unreal, as he waits for the right moment, the moment that never comes." It is the pathology of existential postponement. They live in a perpetual tomorrow, a tomorrow where things will be better, fuller, and more meaningful, but that tomorrow never arrives. In the Matrix, the image of the blue pill is the perfect metaphor. The one who chooses the blue pill is allowed to remain in a pleasant illusion, shielded from the harshness of truth. That is the unconscious choice of the Puer. To choose a dream over reality, the individual chooses comfort over growth, because growing up means confronting pain, accepting limitation, and taking responsibility for oneself. And so, the Puer stays in his familiar room, filled with smoke, late-night conversations, and endless theories about life. Everything seems deep, but nothing actually happens. Von France described this image vividly. He often wakes up late, smokes, wanders until noon, discusses the meaning of life, but never truly lives it. It is the portrait of someone with immense potential, but no direction. A soul is afraid that if it commits to one path, its sense of specialness will vanish, so it lingers at the threshold, never stepping through, protecting the illusion, "I could do anything if only I started." Jung called the phenomenon the self-imprisonment of the soul. The Puer lives but as an onlooker. He observes, analyzes, and imagines, but never touches the stream of life. Feeling becomes replaced by abstraction. Experience turns into philosophy. The soul slowly withers in the light of its idealization. Jung once remarked, "The man living a provisional life stands at the edge of existence. His experiences are like ghosts, abstract, unreal, devoid of the weight of action." This state is the most perilous stage of the Puer Aeternus. No longer young, yet not mature. No longer dreaming, yet not awake. Suspended in between, where meaning and meaninglessness blur into one. When this condition persists, the Puer usually drifts in one of two directions, either into depression and emptiness, or in the reckless pursuit of stimulation, through addiction, sensuality, speed, or endless adventures with no destination. Not out of passion for life, but out of desperation to feel alive. And yet, the greater the effort to prove they are living, the further they drift from life itself, because real life only begins when we dare to choose, to commit, to risk, to lose, to begin. As long as the Puer fears losing, they will never truly have anything at all. Every dream has its limit. When the Puer lives too long in the world of imagination, reality eventually arrives like an unavoidable collision. That collision often takes the form of emptiness, crisis, or profound despair. Carl Jung called this the death of the false persona, the moment when the mask of provisional life begins to crack. When there are no more excuses to delay, no more someday to hide behind, a person begins to see the void within. the emptiness of a life never truly lived becomes apparent. In extreme cases, this confrontation can lead to a total collapse. Jung once told the story of a patient, a young woman, 25 years old, who lived in what he called the provisional life syndrome. She had everything: a good family, education, beauty. And yet, she always said, "I don't know why I'm alive." She couldn't feel the meaning of anything. No joy, no pain, just an invisible drifting through existence. She ended her life by shooting herself in the heart. Jung was there when they found her. He wrote in his journal, her face had entirely changed. It was no longer blank and lifeless as it was in life, but bore a strange expression, as if she had suddenly understood something. A mixture of astonishment and peace, as though she had finally discovered the meaning of life in the very moment she lost it. That story is not to glorify death, but to show the depth of unconsciousness a human being can fall into. We can go through an entire lifetime, do everything, achieve everything, and yet never truly live. Puer Aeternus is the very symbol of that, a human being who exists within the illusion of life, but never really touches it. When the provisional life begins to collapse, the poor soul falls into a terrifying emptiness. The realization that all they ever believed in, their sense of specialness, freedom, infinite potential, was an illusion. And when that illusion dies, the first thing they feel is emptiness. But Jung believed that this emptiness is not an ending, it is a birth. It is a necessary death so that a new form of life can begin. The death is not of the body, but of the false self, the image we've been clinging to all along. It is a moment when the soul awakens, but through pain. Von France wrote, "For the one possessed by the Puer archetype, crisis is the first doorway to maturity. If he can endure the collapse without fleeing, if he can stay with the despair without trying to fill it, then within that emptiness, a real form of life will be born." In psychological depth, despair is not the enemy. It is the messenger of truth. It appears when the soul can no longer tolerate falseness, when the deepest part of us demands to live, not merely to imagine living. But the pure rarely understands this. He fears pain, so he runs. Into work, into relationships, into thrills, into journeys with no destination. And with every escape, he loses another piece of connection with himself. This running cannot last forever. Eventually, life corners us, leaving no exit. That is when every illusion collapses, and the truth stands bare. No handholds, no hiding places, only the self and the void. Jung once wrote, "Sometimes a person must be wounded very deeply before they can begin to heal." Occasionally, the soul awakens only after it has touched the bottom of darkness. The death of false life is precisely that moment, when one finally sees that all grand ambitions, all ideals of freedom, all illusions of uniqueness were merely shells to avoid reality. And to begin truly living, we must let those shells dissolve, because no one can enter real life while still clinging to a dream of immortality. When the facade of false living shatters, a person often falls into a desolate emptiness, a space where all beliefs, goals, and identities dissolve. But it is precisely within that emptiness that the inner child begins to speak. No longer the voice of avoidance, but the whisper of a soul yearning to live authentically. In Jungian psychology, every archetype carries both a radiant core and a shadow. If the shadow of the Puer Aeternus is escape, avoidance, and illusion, then its light is rebirth, creativity, and the renewing power of the spirit. Jung called this aspect the divine child, the sacred child, symbol of a new beginning after the old has fallen apart. The divine child is a child who chooses to grow. It is the result of a soul that has walked through pain, has known loss, and now rediscovers innocence on the far side of suffering. It is no longer innocent because it is naive, but innocent because it understands. It is an innocence tempered by fire. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche described the spiritual evolution of man in 3 stages. The stages are represented by the camel, the lion, and the child. The camel represents the one who bears burdens, obedience, endurance, and responsibility. The lion is the rebel, the one who dares to destroy the old order, who dares to say no to outdated values. But after breaking all the walls, man must become the child, a being who knows how to say yes to life, who knows how to begin again, to play, to create, and to love. Nietzsche wrote, "The child is innocent and forgetful, a new beginning, a self-turning wheel, a sacred yes to life." That is the light of the Puer Aeternus when it has been integrated. No longer the child who avoids responsibility, but the child reborn through responsibility. No longer dreaming to escape the world, but dreams of renewing it. No longer rejecting reality, but breathing imagination into it. Jung believed that the positive pure is the expression of inner vitality, the creative energy that reconnects consciousness with the unconscious. When illuminated, this archetype grants us the ability to perceive meaning even in the smallest things, to sense the sacred in each breath of life. That child reminds us that every action, however small, can be an act of creation. Marie-Louise von Franz also emphasized, "The divine child is the image of the future. The divine child represents unrealized potential. It carries within it the power of renewal and faith in life even after the darkest loss." The light of the pure does not arise from denying the dark, but from passing through it, carrying with it the flame of understanding. When we accept the death of illusion, what remains is true life. True life remains raw, limited, yet full of meaning. From there, the inner child no longer fears pain, nor failure, nor imperfection. It simply wants to live. Authentically, naturally, and creatively. At this stage, one begins to understand that maturity does not mean losing the inner child, but bringing that child into the light, allowing it to live within the real world, with eyes that can truly see and a heart that has learned how to endure. In the midst of his years of success and recognition, Carl Jung went through a period he called the confrontation with the unconscious. It was a time when his life lost all meaning. Everything he had ever known, theories, titles, prestige, suddenly felt empty. He wrote in his memoirs, "I realized that all my achievements were merely an outer shell. Inside, I did not know who I was, nor why I was living." In that crisis, Jung did not turn to intellect, he turned to childhood. He remembered his early days when he would sit for hours building little stone houses in the garden. That memory resurfaced so vividly that it felt like an invitation, a whisper saying, "Go back, play again." And Jung did exactly that. Every day after work, he went into the garden, gathered stones, built small houses, carved symbols, and created strange forms no one else understood. From the outside, it looked like a child's game, but inside it was a ritual of rebirth. Jung wrote, "When I played, I felt real. All thoughts, worries, and concepts disappeared. I was no longer trying to be a psychologist. I was simply a man rebuilding his soul." Through this act of play, Jung rediscovered the primordial creative energy. He had unconsciously lost it in the years of intellect and responsibility. He realized that play is the deepest form of inner work. For Jung, play was not an escape from reality. It was a way to reconnect with the deepest part of oneself. When we play, we are no longer bound by results, logic, or fear of mistakes. We are free to create, to return to the state the soul once knew, the state of the divine child. He wrote, When I constructed those small stone houses, I was unaware of the reasons behind my actions. But gradually, I understood it was the way my soul was speaking to me. It was during this period that Jung wrote the Red Book, a collection of visions, symbols, and dialogues between himself and his unconscious. Many consider it one of the most profound spiritual works of the 20th century. Jung's experience revealed that healing cannot be achieved by intellect or analysis alone. The soul is not restored through understanding, but through creation, by not seeking answers, but by allowing life itself to express through us. When a person begins to play a game, they allow the current of life to flow back in. In every seemingly meaningless act, painting, sculpting, writing, singing, planting, walking, there may lie a doorway back home. In its truest sense, play is not entertainment. It is a natural language of the soul, and the Puer Aeternus, the eternal child, is the one who knows how to speak that language. When integrated, the Puer teaches us what adults have forgotten. Life is not a sequence of goals to achieve, but a journey of creation and experience. That responsibility does not cancel joy. That discipline does not destroy freedom. And that maturity does not mean losing the ability to play. Jung called this moment the rebirth of the inner child, not a return to childhood, but a restoration of the original life force, the energy that makes a human being humble, creative, and truly alive. When one rediscovers the capacity to play, they are no longer ruled by rigid ideals or the illusion of perfection. They are simply living, creating, and existing fully and freely. If Puer Aeternus is a child who lives forever in the realm of dreams, then the little prince is at its most delicate symphony, beautiful, sorrowful, and steeped in loneliness. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, writer, pilot, and a soul that never left the sky of childhood, embody the eternal child in all its light and shadow. Like many peers, he could not reconcile two worlds: the pure world of imagination, where everything has a soul, and the adult world is dry, practical, and ruled by reason and necessity. From the very first chapter, Saint-Exupéry tells us about his childhood drawing, a boa constrictor swallowing an elephant. Adults looked at it and said it was a hat. That small misunderstanding was the boundary between two worlds. On one side, the child's world sees essence beneath appearance. On the other, the adult's world sees only the surface. When adults told the boy to abandon drawing and study more important things, arithmetic, geography, grammar, he obeyed. But at that moment, a part of his soul stopped breathing. That was the moment the pure was buried. The inner child was pushed into shadow, replaced by an adult self that knew how to obey, how to fit in, but had lost the ability to perceive the sacred. Years later, Saint-Exupéry became a pilot, a profession for those who touch both the sky and death. He carried within him a profound estrangement from the world, both romantic and melancholic. When his plane crashed in the desert, suspended between life and death, he wrote The Little Prince as a dialogue with the forgotten part of his own soul. The little prince appeared not from another planet, but from the depths of his unconscious. The boy asked, "Please, draw me a sheep." It was not just a childlike request. It was the soul's invitation to return to creation, to play, to see again. The narrator drew a box and said, "The sheep is inside." That answer, symbolic and profound, showed that he had learned the language of the unconscious, a language that does not explain but evokes. It is a language of dreams, of intuition, of a poor awakened. In psychological terms, the encounter between the pilot and the little prince is the meeting of two halves of one soul, the adult rational, scarred by the world, and the child sacred, pure but forgotten. Their reunion begins the process of healing. The adult learns how to dream again, and the child learns how to live in reality. Yet, The Little Prince is not merely a beautiful tale. It is a sweet tragedy. The tragedy of one who cannot live in the adult world, but cannot return to the paradise of childhood either. That is the essence of the Puer Aeternus. Marie-Louise von France analyzed The Little Prince and described Saint-Exupéry as a man swallowed by the Great Mother. Called Saint-Exupéry, a man swallowed by the Great Mother. In Jungian language, the Great Mother is both life-giver and imprisoner, the symbol of the unconscious that shelters the soul yet prevents it from maturing. The mother here is not a person, but an archetype, the psychic womb of safety that the spirit refuses to leave. Like many peers, Saint-Exupéry longed to return, to be protected, embraced, and dissolved into the whole. But that very longing kept him from becoming fully human. The image of the elephant inside the boa constrictor is the perfect metaphor. The elephant, strength, instinct, the will to live, reality. The boa, the mother's womb, safe and closing where everything is digested, melted, and erased. When the elephant is swallowed, the will to live is absorbed by the unconscious. The hero never leaves the mother's belly to begin his own journey. What Saint-Exupéry sought all his life was freedom, love, and purity, was also what imprisoned him, because true freedom does not lie in escaping the world, but in staying within it while keeping the soul uncorrupted. That is the lesson the Puer Aeternus never fully learns. His death in 1944, disappearing into the Mediterranean sky, it can be seen as the symbolic end of the eternal child, the man who dissolved in the air, returning to where the pure spirit always belonged, to infinity, to imagination, to disappearance. And yet, the little prince remains as the voice of the divine child, reminding the modern soul. We may grow up, take responsibility, but we must never lose the ability to see the world through a child's eyes. Jung once wrote, "Inside every person is a child, and when the person loses touch with the child, he also loses the meaning of life. No one can live forever in the world of dreams. One day, life will knock on the door gently or violently and ask a single question. Are you ready to step out and become yourself?" In most ancient cultures, that question was never answered with words, but with rituals. Primitive tribes understood that a person cannot mature through time alone. There must be a moment of transition. This moment of transition involves a shock, a trial, and a symbolic death, for the old soul to dissolve and the new one to be born. This act was called the rite of passage. In many African or South American tribes, when a boy came of age, the men of the village would take him away from home, separate him from his mother, and bring him into the deep forest. In the darkness, he would face his greatest fear, perhaps wild beasts, the night, or complete isolation. If he endured, he would return to the village as a man. If he failed, he remained a child held at the threshold of adulthood. This ritual holds profound psychological meaning. The mother symbolizes the unconscious, the realm of safety. The forest symbolizes reality and one's inner darkness. To enter the forest is to enter fear, the necessary step for the soul to separate from dependence and form its identity. In the modern world, such rituals no longer exist. No one leads us out of the mother's house. There is no night in the forest, no drums, and no physical trial, but the psychological need for it remains. And when it is not consciously enacted, life itself creates it through crisis, loss, breakup, or collapse. That is why many people only truly grow up after a major upheaval. When a marriage ends, a job disappears, a loved one dies, or everything they once believed in falls apart. These are not just tragedies. These events serve as milestones in the journey of the contemporary soul. Carl Jung once said, "He who does not confront his fear will be ruled by it for life." For the Puer Aeternus, fear is responsibility, limitation, and reality itself. The pure fears that by accepting limits he will lose freedom, that by accepting responsibility he will lose joy, that if he lives in the real world, he will lose his soul. But the truth is the opposite. Only by facing that fear does one become truly free. Freedom does not come from avoiding bonds, but from choosing a bond that has meaning. It is not about leaving the world, but staying in it without being consumed by it. Jung called this the work of the soul. Work is not merely a career. It is the conscious act of engagement, to do, to live, to endure, to be patient, and to exist in the present. This is the medicine for the Puer's illness, the one who forever lives in possibility but never in realization. Marie-Louise von France wrote, "For the Puer, work is the most frightening word. Yet only through work is he forced to face himself, his boredom, his limitations, his repetition, and his disappointments. It is there that his soul begins to take root." In Kierkegaard's philosophy, there is a concept called the dizziness of freedom. When one stands before infinite possibilities, it feels like looking into an abyss. If he refuses to choose, he will forever tremble at the edge, paralyzed by what could be. But if he dares to step forward, that is when he truly begins to live. Maturity, therefore, is not about knowing what one wants, but about daring to choose a path and taking responsibility for it. Because the modern world lacks real rites of passage, people unconsciously create substitutes. Joining the military, engaging in extreme sports, burying themselves at work, or chasing extreme success. All are unconscious attempts to test themselves, to feel alive again. But without awareness, these become only surface replacements for an inner ritual. What is needed is not a confrontation with the outer world, but dialogue with the inner fear. That fear does not need to be destroyed. It needs to be heard, seen, and accompanied. Because freedom lies on the other side of fear, lies the very freedom we have been seeking. When a Puer dares to cross the threshold of fear, he is no longer the dreamer, endlessly hovering in the sky. He becomes the traveler with wings who knows how to land, and that is the true beginning of adulthood. The journey of the Puer Aeternus. The eternal child is always a journey between two poles, between the longing to fly and the need to take root, between infinite freedom and the boundaries of life, between the soul that wants to dream and the reality that demands to live. After passing through illusion, fear, and darkness, one begins to realize that maturity is not the opposite of youth. It is its reconciliation. It is not about killing the child within, but bringing it into the light of awareness, so that the child and the adult can coexist. Carl Jung called this scenario the balance between two archetypes, Puer and Senex. Senex, Latin for the old man, represents wisdom, discipline, stability, order, and reason. Puer, the child, represents creativity, emotion, freedom, and faith. They may seem like opposites, but in truth, they are two faces of the same soul. When the Puer dominates, one lives in illusion, unable to bear limitation. When the Senex takes over, one becomes rigid, cold, and afraid of change. Psychological health emerges only when these two forces meet in consciousness. When the child learns the composure of the older man, and the old man learns the child's innocence. Jung wrote, "Puer is light, Senex is form. When light has no form, it scatters. When form has no light, it becomes lifeless. Only only together do they create life. In the later years of his life, Jung compared the human journey to the path of the sun. Morning is youth when the light rises and burns everything in its path. Noon is the peak time of achievement, assertion, and expansion, and afternoon is when the sun begins to descend, not fading away, but turning inward, carrying its light deep. If we continue to live by the laws of the morning, constantly conquering, asserting, striving upward, we will lose a soul in the second half of life. True maturity begins when we hand over power to the inward journey. It is no longer a quest to go outward, but to go inward. The focus shifts from conquering the external world to comprehending the internal one. By this point, the Puer Aeternus has come full circle. From the mythic child of Ovid, through the shadows of avoidance and the crises of adulthood, to its rebirth as the divine child, the sacred presence within an awakened consciousness. This child no longer hides, no longer fears, knowing that true freedom is not found in escaping the earth, but in learning how to fly within the heart of life itself. They know that true creativity does not come from dreaming, but from living fully in each moment. The text emphasizes that only by accepting limitations can one truly discover freedom. Can a soul discover true infinity? Marie-Louise von France once said, "When a person can work, dream, and take responsibility while still keeping joy alive, that is when the eternal child within has been reconciled." Just like in The Little Prince, in the end, the pilot and the little prince never truly part. The boy disappears into the sky, but leaves within the narrator a new pair of eyes with which to see the world, eyes of one who has matured but is no longer blind. The narrator, having experienced pain, still possesses the ability to love. One who understands that the world is complex, limited, and at times cruel, yet can still smile. That is the final reconciliation, when the old man inside can smile at the child and the child can rest peacefully within the old man. No one wins, no one loses. Both coexist like breath and heartbeat, like darkness and light, like wisdom and faith. Jung once wrote a short line that perfectly concludes this journey. Wholeness is not about perfection, it is the capacity to embrace the opposites within oneself and let them live. And perhaps that is also the simplest definition of healing, when we no longer strive to become someone else, but simply return and live fully as who we are. And that's the content of this episode. If you feel a sense of resonance with these reflections, don't forget to follow the channel and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. See you soon. Bye.